Welcome to the Art and Science of Real Estate Negotiation podcast with Tom Zeeb, on location today with Steve Lloyd. Hey, Steve.
Hey, how are you, Tom?
Awesome. Fabulous location you got here.
Yeah, I like living in Sarasota, and I love living at Sarasota Yacht Club, and I love living on my boat, and I love chasing dolphins and sea rays and sharks, and I have this pretty good life today, all from real estate, actually.
Interesting. So you live on the boat. You live on the yacht.
Yep. I've been living on the boat. I never owned a boat, and I ended up, my life kind of changed at the beginning of COVID. I'm from Westchester, Pennsylvania. And I came down here. I had real estate in in Sarasota on Siesta Key, vacation rentals, and we had done some work to one. So I decided to come down here for 10 days. And it just so happened is the 7th day of me being here, we went into COVID lockdown. So,
Nice.
it's kind of strange. I wasn't in Siesta Key a lot. I had other people managing the properties, but everyone's like, you fly, you're going to die. So I decided to stay. And, it changed my life. Unfortunately, COVID was a really bad thing for a lot of people. But for me, being stuck here on an island and there wasn't many people and, it's considered the #1 beach in the whole United States, and the white sand and just, the great people from the Midwest. I had no people from New York, Philadelphia, Washington with their little tiny attitudes. And look, I have an attitude. I love that area, but
You're Pennsylvanian. I'm a New Yorker.
I was dealing with really nice people, and nobody would call me an asshole, and everyone wanted to give me apple pie. So I literally only knew 2 people when I got stuck here. And after like 5 weeks, it was just, I worked so hard to build my real estate portfolio. And I worked so hard as a 20 and a 30 and a 40-year-old. I was that guy that I'm never going to have enough, and, wanted to be worth $100 million and, $1 billion worth of real estate, that young testosterone in the 30s. And that kind of calmed me down. And I decided to stay after 5 weeks. I just made my decision. I needed my life to change and get out of the real estate rat race, which I still buy, big apartment buildings. We usually don't buy anything less than 30 or 40 million, but it was time for a change. I ended up losing like 60 pounds and I bought a bike and created a life here, and flew back in September of that year when cases came down, and gutted everything in my house. I gave everything away to Goodwill. My employees came and helped me, and literally sold my house in a day because they started to rise. The real estate started rising. I literally drove back in my car, packed a couple things, brought the cross that my mom passed away with, and I brought that cross, and that was it, some belongings, and I started a new life and started to meet people. And it's kind of crazy. I was looking for a house on the Intercoastal, but I didn't want a big house. I was single at the time. And just the houses are just too big on the Intercoastal. They're building these mansions, and just wasn't for me. And I never owned a boat, never owned wave runners, never owned anything, apparatuses on the water. And I saw an ad for the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show about a year after I was stuck here. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to live on a boat. So I called my buddy and talked to a bunch of people about it. They all told me I was absolutely crazy. I hear the stupid saying 3,000 times, the best day is when you buy a boat, is when you sell a boat, and all the bullshit. I'm like, I wanted to create a new lifestyle. And I sold a big portion of my real estate, and I went to Fort Lauderdale Boat Show, and I came back with a 52-foot Horizon Motor Cat. And then all my friends started coming. No one could get their hair, and I put something on social media. If anyone will come, anyone give me a haircut, I'll give you.
Nobody would cut your hair during COVID.
Yeah, everything was we were in lock. We were shut down. We couldn't get our hair cut. So I said, I'm just kidding around on social media. I have a following, and I said, if anyone will come cut my hair, I'll give you 2 nights in one of my properties, which I had 8 units. Next thing, I had 30, 40 people here. And that's where the name of my boat, my one boat, I actually have 2 now. One's called My Best Life. The other boat is called Our Best Life. But at that moment, at like 52 years old, I just said, you know what? I'm going to live my best life and do real estate. And I got rid of a lot of friends through all the internet stuff during COVID, all the stuff going back and forth. And I was in Marina Jacks, and then a slip came up at the Sarasota Yacht Club, a real prestigious club on the Gulf of Mexico. And it's one of the elite club marinas in Florida. And about 2 months ago, the guy called me and said, I got a double slip in the middle of the marina. Do you want it? And I said, absolutely. I'm in. So this is where I am now. I'm having the time of my life.
Lots to unpack and all of that.
Yeah.
So a couple of things. I've heard you say it before. That you said your 50s is where it's at. So you're talking a major upheaval, life change at 52.
Yeah.
But dream come true. I mean, how many people always talk about wanting to live on a boat, dream about living on a boat? But it's usually a downgrade in a lifestyle to live on a boat rather than an upgrade
Yeah.
to larger than most apartments. So what else goes behind that? I mean, how is it possible? Not just because of circumstances that happened, you saw the opportunity. How were you able to make it happen in real estate?
I think all your wealth is the better, what you need to do in your 20s and 30s and 40s. And I think this is really important. I owned a pizza shop and I was a union truck driver, but I saved in my 401k in my 20s and my 30s and my 40s. And I hear this today and just, so many people, that are like 28 and 30 years old and 32 and 33. And I got 30 more years to retire, and they dump all their money into their entrepreneurs. They dump all their money into their business and all their money into the real estate. But as if you have just a business, if you're just not talking real estate, you're dumping it in the biggest tax bucket hole you'll ever have. So one of the things that I did was I really saved 20 to 30% of my income that whole time. It's okay to do real estate. I mean, that's my core. That's where I made millions and became extremely wealthy. But I've always had a Vanguard account. I've always done the S&P 500. I'm not a guy that tries to pick stocks, and I'm just a Warren Buffett. I've done the S&P 500. Carl Fisher from Camaplan, taught me a lot about self-directed IRAs. So about 38 or 39, I started moving my 401k money that was at my company. I moved it over to a self-directed IRA company, which is a Carl company. And then I started lending capital with it. And I've been building that up. And I really concentrate on it. And on my savings, what I want you to understand is in your 20s and your late 20s, your 30s, and your 40s, you're creating what you want in your 50s and 60s. You can go screw off and go on trips and do what you know. I'm not saying not to live good, but the struggle was hard. Like, I was $2.5 million in debt when I was 41 years old. It was absolutely atrocious, but I still had that savings and I still had that IRA money that if I was going under, that wasn't going under with me.
So things that started the tank for you personally.
Yeah.
It wasn't all,
No.
it hasn't been yachts all your life. You're not
No,
born with
no,
a silver
no,
spoon in your mouth.
no.
You're a truck driver.
Yeah.
And
So
so
I was a union truck driver.
Yeah. Gotcha.
It was,
But don't want to leave that part out.
we made a lot of money.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And yet,
And I had the pizza shop.
and the pizza shop,
But
and everything went bust.
Well, no, I mean that at 41, I can't talk too much about it, but I had a really bad person in my life that was taking money from me. And I can't go into details, but it
Understood.
actually, that person left, and it actually left me $2.5 million in debt.
Yep.
And I was actually about 30 days away from default. And, an investor that I had paid him back on a bunch of deals, he called me and wanted to invest more money with me, but I had lunch with him and I told him the story. I told him I was going under and I was defaulting to about 13 investors and to, the banks. And he asked me, we sat there for 3 hours. He couldn't believe what was going on because he actually really liked me and respected me. And he asked me, how much would it take to get me to even and get a restart? Because there was 3 months where I didn't even get out of bed. It was absolutely atrocious what was going on in my life. And so depressed, and, you try to build something and it's taken away from you kind of, but I got to take responsibility because I chose the person to be in my life. And this person called Kerry, my business partner at Stone Bay Holdings. And he says, I'd like to stop by. This was 2 weeks later. And he brought a check for $1.5 million. Absolutely crazy, insane. And that reignited my real estate portfolio. We did all the right things with the money. So it's about implanting things in your life and implanting your real estate for 10 and 15 and 20 years from now. I see all these guys that are wholesaling and flipping properties. That's a W-2 income job to me.
Yes.
You're not creating wealth. If you're flipping properties and wholesaling, that money is in the worst tax bracket that you possibly can. I think there needs to be balance, and I don't want to get off track because I do get off track all the way a lot. But, I think there needs to be a balance. I've taught a lot of guys that, the wealth is created by the real estate you hold because, the flipping, you're paying the highest taxes because it's all short-term capital gains. It's not long. There's no tax benefits to it. So I'd say everything in life is balanced, right? So maybe flip 2, wholesale 2, and keep 1. You got to build up that real estate portfolio over time. And that's a mistake. I was holding too much at one time rather than, holding 3 and selling 1. I was equity rich, but I was poor in the bank. I didn't have very much money. And it really made, if I would have just sold a property and made 30, 40 grand and have it in the bank, you know?
Yeah. So that you went out of balance in the other
I
direction.
went
Some
out of
people are
balance in
flipping
the
too
other,
much and
yeah.
holding nothing. You were holding too much and flipping
I was,
nothing. So
yep,
there was no
yeah.
like a raw income.
And then later I learned the balance, you know, but, you know, yeah, I mean, everything is balanced. That's why I want you to own properties. I want you to wholesale one. I want you to learn how to raise capital. If the banks aren't lending, we're coming into a time where it's really tough to get loans. You know, learn, you know, there's plenty of places now where you can go and be taught how to raise capital and how to secure people the right way. And you got to have that toolbox when things get tough. I believe that things are going to be tough next year. I think they're going to be tough over the next 2 years. So, but when the banks stop lending, you have to have a place to be able to do your rehabs and your funding and get to somebody that teaches how to raise capital. I don't think anyone wants to call me because I'm expensive as shit. I won't be cheap. So you'd have maybe call somebody else. But, you know, learning how to raise capital was the turning point for me because I got into real estate in 2004. We had the crash around 2006. And
More perfect timing.
yeah,
Absolutely
it was more
timing.
perfect timing. And the banks would not lend money. And I had a good friend that was flipping houses on credit card. They were $60,000 properties, and he would take his credit card and purchase the property and use another credit card, 20 grand to rehab the property. Then he got his tenants in there. And then he went to the bank because he had a tenant in there, his cash flowing, and he'd refi, get a permanent loan, and he'd pay off his credit cards. Why? I just took that to a different level of, you know, I just learned I just kind of mimicked and copied, plagiarized, you want to call it, what, you know, a commercial loan banks were doing. And I was letting people use that, you know, commercial paperwork on me, personal guarantees. You do it all the right way. You protect your investors. You make sure they get paid on time. You make sure you pay them monthly, you know, and that's kind of where I got my reputation. I grew a huge investor base over the years. So now when I have a property, I don't need a bank. Except for my big apartment buildings,
Yeah.
you know, when I'm purchasing a 30, 40, 50, $60 million apartment building, they're bank financed, and we got to raise equity for the rehab and things like that, operating costs. But, you know, when I buy, you know, I still buy $500 million properties sometimes. Maybe I might, you know, maybe 2 million or something. But normally we pay cash for them, or we go privately for the money instead of trying to go to a bank. Because look, as well as I done, I mean, I just went to get a loan on Lido, and they're looking at my finances and they're just like, you don't have enough W-2 income. I'm like, you out of your freaking mind? I'm like, I got crazy money in my Roth 401k. I got great money in the bank, and they're telling me I don't have enough W-2 income.
Banks can only think about things one way, and it's not.
I was sitting there looking at this guy. I'm like, dude, you're like, take a personal guarantee from me. You can take my life, but they can't take personal guarantees on lending money to a condo, right? They can only take the property.
Interesting.
So, you know, that's kind of, I'll just tell you, you know, one moment in my life where there's so many different times, right? But we'll get into gratitude and your 5-year outlook a little later. But, you know, when I got into real estate, I got to like my 6th or 7th property. And I was sitting there one night and I'm thinking husband and wife are both getting up and going to work. I don't know them, right? They signed a lease. I don't know. Met them once. And both of them are getting to work. So I got, say 8 properties. I got 16 people to get up, to go to work, to their W income job. And at the end of the month, they're paying for my debt. They're creating my wealth. And that was like a change that I remember it, you know, it was, you know, I got into real estate in 2004. So that was probably 2006 where I had that. And that just blew me away of thinking that 16 people get up for me every single day to pay my debt. And I go, you know, I want 100 people to get up for me every day. I want 200, I want 500. And today I don't know, I probably have 6,000 people that get up to go to work to pay for all my debt.
To pay your
today.
rent, which is effectively your debt. So it's
To pay my
everyone
mortgage
else.
and
You're
depreciation.
leveraged out having other people work their jobs, run their lives to pay your rent, which is paying off your debt,
Yeah.
which is creating your wealth.
Yeah. Crazy. And that moment that night was kind of like when that light bulb went off and said, I'm going all in, man. I'm going all in. And then, you know, I see a lot of people stay stagnant in real estate. And it's okay. You can own, to me, you have to keep progressing. You have to better yourself, you know, physically, mentally, with your real estate. You have to go to these real estate meetings and learn and network. You know, there's so many times where I've been to Tony Robbins 5 or 6 times and I'm going for Tony, but it's the people in the room that are going to change your life that you can network and do business with. That's when people call me, I tell them to get to a real estate meeting, go meet people, go tell them ask them how they did it. And you always hear this, you need the team, you need education on what you're going to do. And it's worked out because I didn't have the right partners 16 years ago, but I'm telling you right now, I got the right partners. Kerry Fakes is my partner in Stone Bay Holdings, and I got Chip Lever and Brian Adams, and Jason Scott is huge at Bigger Pockets. I pinch myself since the partners that I have, but that's another weed out process. Make sure that you guys, when you do partnerships, it's called fair exchange, and you have to be on the same page with your partner. And I tell everyone that's 30 years old, they call me up and I got a partner, and me and him are going to buy and hold properties. I'm like, oh man, you're just so screwed. And you're like, I love this guy and he loves me. I'm like, you're so screwed.
That might be the problem.
Because life changes every 5 or 6 years.
Easily.
Yeah.
Which people don't realize when you've only had a few 5 or 6 year cycles as an adult. So what should one look for in terms of building a team or getting the right partners together? What's your process? What words of wisdom do you have now that you've done it successfully and been through many cycles?
It can't just be, look, I've made this mistakes, 14 years ago, it was about making money. I was an immature investor. It was about making money. But, today it's a very rigorous process to be partners with me. It's almost like I'll call it an interview, but I have to see what his goals are, where he wants to be. Not in a month or 2 months or in 5 months, where he wants to be in 5 years, right? Because, if you do some partnerships and you own 5 or 10 properties and you start building that equity, you got to make sure you have the agreement in 5 years. You're not going to want to sell the whole portfolio, or it's really hard being partners. It's difficult. I am the luckiest guy in the world to have Kerry Fakes as my partner, because not always agree. God help me, or God help her. We don't always agree, but we know what the future holds for us. And we don't always look out of what we're talking about today. We're looking at what the end result is, 5 to 10 years from now. But, it's character. What are their ethics? Do they want to give to charity? You're looking for that special person. And if the whole talk is about money, it's about creating a culture, right? I can tell you this, you know me pretty well. I've created a culture in my companies, my businesses. I've created a culture with my investors. I've created a culture with my friends in the environment that I live in. We just went to the Bahamas for a month. I had 25 people fly down, and they're going to be the nicest people you ever want to meet. And if I have someone that doesn't fit into that business plan or that entrepreneurship that I'm looking for, don't force anything. Don't force anything. Get me all pumped up.
I know.
Tom, you're getting me pumped up. I'm getting warmed up.
What would you have done different? Go back and talk to the Steve of 10, 20 years ago. Go and talk to Steve of half your age. Talk to a late 20s, year old Steve.
I get that a lot. I hear people say it, but I think that, if you work hard and you get up every day and you do the right thing when no one's looking, that's my reputation. You got to go through the hard knocks. You got to go through the problems. I think I would have definitely got in the multifamilies a lot faster. I think I stayed into the single family world a little too long. I really didn't get into multifamilies in, what are we in 2000? I don't even know what year it is anymore. 2023. I probably got into multifamilies about 2000, late 17, 18.
Okay.
And I would have probably got in apartment buildings. I own apartment buildings and mobile home parks and apartment buildings, some on student housing campuses. I would have definitely got to multifamily faster. Yeah, because, if you own 10 properties and you raise the rent, $50, your properties just went up maybe 40 grand. But, one of the apartment buildings I own today is 970 units. And when you raise the rent $50 on 970 units, well, your apartment building just went up $6 million.
That's serious math.
And most people don't know the tax benefits are a lot better on apartment buildings than they are our single families or the small multis. So I would recommend anybody to, but I also know people that own 150 single family units are pretty wealthy and they're all paid off and they started when they were 21 years old.
So it's customizing it for you, for what you're after. If you're interviewing partners saying, what do you want 5 years out, 10 years out?
Yeah.
It's the same idea which I think people need to stop and think about. Where are you at today? What do you want to be doing?
Yeah.
Is it multi-units? Is it something different? But it doesn't matter what it is, as long as it achieves the goal. You want to live. You want to
Yeah,
live
it
on
doesn't
your
really
yacht,
matter what it
paradise.
is. I mean, it has to be like, look, my partners that I buy apartment buildings with, they fully understand that I'm not going around the country chasing properties. I'm not doing it. It's just not what I'm good at, right? Well, we'll come back to what I'm not good at, right? So what I am good is at raising capital. Okay, so when they find an apartment building, they call me and they go, hey, we need X amount of dollars and we'll give you X amount percentage of the back end. Usually our apartment buildings are 60-40 split, so I get a nice piece of the back end. But they know that they can't say to me a year later, you didn't go to the property and evaluate the property and go through the units with us and you shouldn't get as much money. No, I tell people straight up, I'm only good for one thing, right? I'm only good for money and that's it.
Gotcha.
I don't want to go evaluate properties, but that's where you have to make sure everyone's on the same page because I believe that it's fair exchange, right? And you just have to get everything on the table, exactly whose roles, who's doing what in the company, what are your responsibilities. Carrie Fakes knows exactly what her roles and responsibilities are, and I know exactly what my roles and responsibilities are, and they really don't change.
And you're focusing on your strengths, not your weaknesses. She's focusing on her strengths, not her weaknesses.
Carrie
so the balance
is
there.
amazing at the accounting, the tax returns, the K-1s, all the shit that I don't want to look at.
You can't stand to deal with.
But, when an asset comes up, and, I have about 13 strategic partners today that I do business with. And the strategic partner is that person that goes and finds assets. And then they call me and they go, hey, do you want to do this deal? So I only deal with about 13 people. But, you
talk about building out the team while you're strong at raising money, but you leave the other parts of the
I don't get
business.
it right. I'm sorry. I got a little chart there.
All right.
Carrie is everybody that we hire in our company. What is your strength? What are you here for? What are you good at? What do you love to do? That is one of the questions that Carrie asked. If you're in this company, what would you love to do for this company? So, and they just can't say everything. When they get the specific, whether it's bookkeeping and the accounting part or just a general administrator, we had a girl that she was amazing. She just goes, I love administration work. I want to be your assistant.
Awesome.
I don't want to do accounting and bookkeeping and all these other things, and she was really good at what she do. But that was a little crazy. We interviewed about 33 people that time. She was a 33rd or 34th person, and she goes, I love being an administrative assistant, and she got the job.
Done. Nothing wrong with knowing your place.
Yeah.
What you're good at, what you're not. Oh, that's something you wanted to mention.
Yeah.
Well, you're good at raising money, good at doing real estate deals, good at being excited. What are you not good at, Steve?
I'm not good at the accounting. I'm not good at evaluating deals.
Oh, interesting. You'll raise the money for the deal, but not evaluate it.
Yeah, I don't. We go through them, but it's not my real strong point. Mine is raising capital, man. Mine is raising capital and making money on my money. I am very good at structuring note deals. I'm very good at lending capital. I'm very good at structuring what I think we deserve in a deal, right? So I have superpower strengths. I'm really good with people. I'm really good with my investors. Man, for a second there, I didn't think I was worth anything, but I'm really good at sitting with people and talking to them. And I can read somebody, whether they're an asshole within 3 minutes or if we're going to be a partner or we're not, right?
Yep. So the reason why you're good at that is there's reading of people. Are there tells that you're looking for? Are there things that pop up, patterns you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, not everybody fits in what your goals are and what your future looks like. I mean, I turn investors away. If they don't, I go, what are you looking for? It's almost like an interview, right? I don't, we've been doing this a long time, so it's not like I'm looking for investors. But when I do have one that comes to me, I actually really interview them. And I tell them what our company is about and what we're doing. And it's almost like I really am. I want to make sure that, what they're looking for meets what they're looking for in their investment goals. I've had a couple people, they were a little arrogant. They were a little cocky. They were a little like, I'd like to have more of a return. And I'm setting my ways at it. It's this or it's nothing. I'm not for everybody, right? Every relationship's not for everybody. So that's, what we have to realize. And I'm really good at self-directed IRAs, and it really benefits Carrie and I of structuring deals with our self-directed IRA. And, look, this is probably, to me, there's many things that I know and I could talk about, but, I really hope in your late 20s and your 30s, you are maxing out that self-directed 401k. If you don't have enough money you kind of need some money to move it over to self-direction. But let's get to the point. I can tell you today, my wealth is repetitive wealth, is I keep getting paid over and over of that mailbox money. I'm really good at the notes, but what I want to explain to you is people don't understand. I always go, start saving, start putting in a Roth, but it's 30 years away. That's okay though, because when you there's a big difference. If you can save up that money to get to, 50 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand, when you're making 10% on 100, you make 10,000 a year. But if you can get it to 200, you're making 20 grand. If you get it to 300, you're making 30 grand. But you can also, if you structure your 401k right, whether you have employees, you don't have employees, there's limits to everything. But I'm telling you, it's something that I focused on the past 30 years. My Roth, I had a traditional for a while. I moved it to the Roth about 10 years ago. My money's all Roth. I'm telling you, I make crazy money on the interest. And, the end game for me is like, trust me, I'm living my best life now, but, I can see 15 years out from now where all that Roth money is I'm lending out, let's just say I'm lending out at 10%. That Roth money is going to be making me, over $500,000 a year. And it's making me a fair amount of money now, but I could just keep rolling it back in. It's growing tax-free.
Yeah.
So I want you to understand when you have that Roth and you build that up, you can't compound. I mean, come on, Rule 72 and compound. Just look at those calculators. You have to. It's so important to me. I'm a whack job, man.
So
I pull out my compound interest calculator all the time and I'm going over my money.
Let's talk about both of them. Start with Rule 72 for anyone that's not familiar.
Rule 72, you just divide it and it gives you how much money you have and what they just Google it. And it'll tell you how, you're getting a certain rate of return. It'll tell me how many years you'll double your money.
Gotcha.
So
Rule 72,
yeah.
How long does it take to double your money? And you should be focusing on things that double.
Look, people are going to give you this far shit, but every 7 to 8 years, you can double your money.
Okay.
So look, if you got if you got $2 million, just if you're doing the right thing with your money and you're getting 9 to 10%, you're going to have $4 million, right, in 7 years. But just think about all the money you're going to make in between. You're going to be at 8 million. But I'm telling you, it's one of the, being 55, it is one of the most important things. You can talk to Carrie, you can talk to my friends. I bring it up all the time. But you have to grow it for it to make money on itself and to be able to compound. So I hope everyone takes, every time they get paid, they put that money in that 401k. And if you're in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, I hope you have $1 million, $1.5 million in there where you're making $150,000 a year in a Roth, where that $150,000 you made, you will never have to pay taxes on that. Never. And when that really starts building up, if you take a compound interest calculator at like 8, 9, 10%, and say you have a fair amount of money in there, watch when it really starts to grow at 60 because it's compounding. And now it's like you're making $200,000-$300,000 a year.
There's an inflection point when you look at the calculators, a point where things just start to rock up.
Look at, go 15 years out if you want with a compound interest calculator, and you'll see it growing, and then it just explodes. Because if you got 800 grand, you're making 80. But if you got 1.2 million, you're making 120,000. And then if you got a 401k, you do it right, you're adding 35,000 a year.
And this is, to put a point on it as well, this is on top of everything else. This is separate from your commercial investments, separate from your apartment buildings, literally side money. So earning money on the money, not anything
tax-free.
Tax-free on top of it all.
No taxes. It is like don't give me all the insurance policies with your bullshit comments. I'm just telling you, you can go do your insurance policies. You can pay that insurance agent. But everyone has different. I don't have any children, unfortunately. You might have an insurance policy with a whole life. I don't know. Sure. But for me, being single with no kids, unfortunately, it's a Roth 401k. And I know in the next 8 years, I will be able to take $400,000 to $500,000 a year, completely tax-free.
Coming out of that account,
totally tax-free.
Because you spent the time building it now.
Right. And if you don't like that self-directed IRA, go find a product that will go tax-free. And even when you pull it out, it's tax-free. Yeah. So, I know some guys are going to make comments and say, oh, I got this insurance policy and I can borrow off my own money and I can borrow for 2 and 3%. And, that's great for you, but it's not for me.
Gotcha. You have different.
I know a lot of insurance agents playing golf today.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's a different gravy.
Look, there's no fees. I got like a $400 fee a year and a transaction fee of like $150 on a lot of money. It's peanuts. If you go to Vanguard or some of these other places, you got $1 million, you're paying, 1%, you're paying, 10 to 15,000 a year. Put that out over, compound that out over. You just get me all pumped up, Tom. Compound that out over 10, 15 years. Yeah, it's 150, 200 grand you're paying in fees.
Of your own, of what could have been your own money and held, right? If you used a different structure of self-directed IRA.
Yeah,
structure.
look, if you're flipping properties, you can do assignments with your Roth IRA, through your self-directed IRA. There's just so many different things. It's the greatest thing about real estate, man. You might interview somebody else, Tom, and he's got all these other great ideas. We all different have ideas. It's what fits better for you. When you get the 5 or 10 properties, maybe you don't want to manage them. Maybe you want a property management company.
Yep.
I never wanted to manage my shit. I got too much stuff now.
I don't blame you. Yeah.
Right.
And now you get to the point where you don't want to anyway.
Yeah.
And that's personality driven.
Yeah.
That's what I think a lot of people miss too is,
what
like,
I
well, do I
want.
do this? Do I do that? There's something for everybody in real estate.
There is.
Every personality type and every want and every desire and every potential outcome, you got to figure out what it is for you so that it gets down to that.
Yeah.
Interesting. So Phoenix from the flames, you burned down at one point and rose out of your own ashes, basically.
I did.
With the help of a
stories,
fellow that-
look, everyone's got a story. It's learning the willing not to give up. Any entrepreneur has challenges and crying moments. And I said crying, not trying.
Yeah, exactly.
They're definitely crying moments.
Crying with the C.
But, look, I just always, the belief systems that I have, what's been installed with me, some by Tony Robbins, I bring Tony up a lot, but just the belief in myself and knowing that you have to get through these fires and these trials that challenge you to your core. I've been challenged to my core. And that's why a big part of my morning routine is looking out 5 years, where I want to be in 5 years. What do I want to be doing? I'm 55. I think I check out around 82 or 83. We were laughing about this, but you look for a male, white male, is going to die around 83. So I'm trying to live my best life now, but don't give up. Find that accountability partner when things get tough that you can talk to, you can call to, but I'm telling you, it's worth it. As long as you always do the right thing when no one's looking, when you do get it out, there will be people there to help you. I'm living proof. I feel that I don't bullshit anybody. Tom knows. You come and ask me and
Straight shooter.
I'll tell you straight up, whether it's right or wrong, or I'll tell you how I feel about it. I might not even be right about it, but I'll tell you how I feel about it. But it takes a long time to build a real estate portfolio. And one thing that we were talking about earlier before the interview started, we started talking about a little bit of negotiation.
Yeah.
And, I'm kind of weird. I put in an offer and that's my number. I usually don't go up or down but I want, some of the mistakes that I made and I see people make today, and I made these mistakes when properties in Delaware County, Pennsylvania were in the $100,000 range, property be up for, 100 grand. And I'd be like, I want that property for 90. I want that property for 85. I want that property. I was so gung-ho on trying to get that person down as much as I can. And you know what? I realized all I need is real estate assets. So if that property, big mistake I made, if that property was 100 grand, you know what? Yeah, you should get something off it. If your objective is to keep that property for 10 or 15 years, I'm telling you, it doesn't matter whether you pay 92, 94, or 97 for that property, because 15 to 20 years from now, that property is going to be worth 160,000. You don't want to lose it in a bidding situation, in a bidding war where someone ends up paying, 97 and you offered 96.
What was the point?
What was the point?
Yeah.
Because 15 years from now, it doesn't matter. Build assets, the ability to tax benefit for your life. But I mean, today I'm probably part of, I think it's somewhere in the $350 to $400 million worth of assets.
It's huge.
And, I'm not buying as much as I used to, but I talk out, but we did.
You
We
say
are
that, but you
buying a
just
lot.
bought something, yeah.
We are buying a lot, but just keep buying, keep it organized, get a great bookkeeper. I mean, when I started out, I didn't know accounting. I didn't want to know the bank statements and do all that bullshit. I hated it, right? I went and got an amazing, first it was a bookkeeper, then Kerry became my partner, who knew accounting. But before Kerry, I knew the first thing I had to hire a decent bookkeeper, because you got to keep the whole foundation straight with your taxes and your K-1s, and knowing that when you sell a property and you make 50, you better believe that 40% of that money is going to the government if you're flipping and wholesaling. A little different when you're buying and holding, but the tax benefits that you can create are just amazing. People come and they talk to me and they ask me everything that I do, and they go, wow, you make it sound so simple. And I'm like, it's hard, but it's simple. When someone comes to me and they go, we got this deal and I want to do this to it, we're going to do this to it, and then we're going to end up doing this to it, I'm like, I'm out. I don't want complicated things. It is not hard to build a real estate portfolio. It's not.
I think you better say that again. It's not.
Yeah, it's really not hard to build a real estate portfolio. It's just, I think another mistake I made in the early part of, I owned a lot of real estate at Temple. We bought too much, too fast.
Okay.
Too much, too fast. Never works in life, right?
Why did you buy too much too fast?
Well, I wanted to be a multi-millionaire. Yeah,
Yeah,
all of it. I wanted to be a multi-millionaire. I wanted to get, I didn't want to own 3 properties. I wanted to own 20 properties with 2 years. I'm going to buy 15 this year. I'm going to buy 20 this year. And I'm telling you, when I really created wealth is where I got more organized and I slowed down a little bit and let things mature. But, this is a mistake. Let me go the 5-minute mistakes that Steve has made. Steve used to own the title company, the construction company, used to own the property management company. I owned all this. I thought I needed to own everything within the development of real estate.
Yeah.
You know what? I wasn't making any money. I was so diluted with my time and not being able to pay attention to each facet of each company. I mean, that's part of the reason why that didn't drive me to be broke, but the other crap did. But, trying to own everything and every piece of the puzzle doesn't work either. These guys come in, they're like, I own this and this. And I'm like, all right, so, I can be an idiot. I'm like, all right, so how much money are you making?
Yeah.
Tell me how much money you're making. Like, I get it out of them. I pull the Tony Robbins, I pull it out of their heart. They ain't making shit because they're so diluted instead of concentrating on the 1 or 2 things, right? I think that, guys come in, they own real estate, they own this part, they own this, they're in this. And I'm like, it's all bullshit to me, right? Because I think it's hard enough to run 1 company than run 5 or 6 companies.
Yes.
I believe today, I'm going to own an ice cream store, but it's after I want to own an ice cream store.
That sounds like a passion.
I got a guy that wants me to,
because
it's amazing ice cream. But yeah, this is totally blow money. This shit's just picture we're flying down the Gulf of Mexico and I'm going to throw $100,000 out in the Gulf. But I want some free ice cream. I love ice cream. So,
why do I think though it might?
Once
the Midas touch with ice cream.
Once you get the money, the cash flow, then you can invest in other things, I believe. That's how it's worked for me. I'm glad that I woke up and took all those businesses away and I focused on the 1 or 2 things that I was good at and we built the companies. Now we do really well. And now I got look, I'm serious about what I invest in, but I can throw 100 over here or 200 over here and not have to worry about it. But it needs to be your core. You need to stay focused.
That, I think, is an enormous lesson that also doesn't sound like it's an enormous lesson, but most people are spreading themselves too thin. They think they have to do a little bit of everything. People brag about being a serial entrepreneur or serial business, which effectively means they're not focused on anything. And that lack of focus is what's stopping them from being able to move ahead. There's only so many things you can do in a given day, particularly if you got family and friends and this and that.
I tell you, I got so many people that I've helped and I've helped train and mentor, and I tell them this shit, and they're the hungry 30-year-old and, they come back to me, not even in 2 years, way sooner than 2 years. And, got my buddy out in Chicago. I told him not to buy a bar, build real estate. He's flipping, making money, buys a freaking bar. And guess what? That bar didn't do too well. And he's like, oh man, you were right. What the hell did I do buying a bar, man? It was a lot challenging, harder than I thought it was. But,
it's one thing to sit at it and drink. It's another one to manage.
You're going to get the alphas that are going to do no matter what I say, but then they come back and I go, well, now I get to being older, man. I'm getting older. I'm 55. Now I get to say, now I'm at the age where I get to say, I told you so, where I didn't listen to shit to other people when they were older than me anyway. I wasn't listening to
exactly
nobody.
What it is. Well, is there something then so if it's always ego driven, what can you do if you're younger? It's one thing to say, oh, there's yet another older guy telling me to slow down and stay in my lane and to do my thing. But come on, is there an unlock formula? Is there something special they could do to get over the ego and start pacing themselves appropriately?
Get over the ego and start pacing yourself appropriately. Remember the word balance. Everything in life is fair exchange and balance. It's with your relationship with your dog, with your parents, with your kids. It's all fair exchange. And what I mean by fair exchange is, if me and Tom are in business together, if there's not fair exchange and Tom's doing all the work and I'm slacking off, the partnership's not going to work. And that's why partnerships don't fail, because what you're going into and what each roles of each partner is really not spelled out, right, correctly, because that's where the aggravation and the frustration comes when that happens. So
I've also seen a lot of partnerships that are the opposite of what you and Carrie have, where Carrie's your balance. She seems to love doing the things that you don't want. You bring in something that feels that too many people find somebody identical to them. It's like they're looking in the mirror trying to clone themselves and think that's going to create success.
Me and Carrie Fakes, my wonderful business partner, the whole wide world, are not identical.
That's for you, Carrie.
And it's awesome. I mean, there's nobody more important to me than Carrie Fakes. She was there when I was dead freaking broke in 2012, where I had $2.5 million. When I told her to leave the company because she was the bookkeeper, I didn't want her to go down with her. And she basically said, put on the big boy panties. I'm not leaving you. I believe in you. She believed in me more than I believed in myself. And she goes, we're going to take one bite out of the elephant. And I'm telling you, Carrie was making $40,000, $50,000 a year. And I don't even know why she did it. I have no idea. She believed in me though. And she was just like, look, we got to create a plan. This is a mess. And we're going to take one bite out of the elephant. She said that phrase so much, and I'm going to be dying. I'm going, one bite out of the elephant. She's like, we're going to take one bite out of the elephant. And it was hard, man. We would flip a deal. We'd make, say, 30, 40 grand. And then I'd have to make sure her bills were paid. I had to make sure my bills were paid. I had to make sure the company bills were paid, because there wasn't a whole lot of money to go around there. Yeah. So it wasn't like I could go, flip a property and go on vacation. And that went on for, look, man, I didn't talk about this, but I get emotional. And it was crazy hard. I was $2.5 million of debt. And that guy came through and wrote a $1.5 million check. And it took 5 years. And it took the two guys that still believed in me and came to me. And two guys asked me to get into the apartment building world. And, this wasn't, a $500,000 deal. And Brian Adams came to me and said, hey, can you do this deal with me? And I put up $5.5 million. And, we bought that thing for $27.5 million. We put $2 million into it. And 12 months later, we sold it for $41 million. And I made $5.5 million. Carrie had her share. We paid back our investors. We got all caught up. Every single penny I owed to investors, I wrote a check with all their back interest and everything I owed them. And it changed my life forever. So, and when I go back earlier in this interview, I said, always do the right thing when no one's looking. Never screw anybody. And it's something I never did. And I think that moment in life was the only reason that happened. And then we just, I bought one in Chip, and 5 months later, we sold another one. And then we bought 3 or 4 more going back, 4.5, 5 years. We ended up owning like 13 or 14. I couldn't even believe I'm buying, the one apartment building we bought, 2 years ago was $75 million. It's worth $130 million today. But it was brutal. So you got to believe, you got to have the right people around you. You got to never give up. It's not as hard as I made it. I guess it is, but it was humbling. But, it's the gratitude. 5 minutes, Tom, every single morning. I'm telling you, I never, ever miss a morning of being grateful for Carrie, the people in my life, for what I have, what I live, where I'm going. I believe that I have the greatest life that I could possibly ever, I got lucky. It's part of luck. People go, you're not lucky. You worked your ass off. I'm like, bullshit. There's people that work, 40, 50 years and never get what I've been able to achieve. And a big part of it is, you got to it was timing, being in the right place at the right time. But if you're not in the game, you're never going to be in the right place. You got to be in the game. You got to have that never give up attitude, that you're going to get up every single day. And if it's Monday, you get up, and on Tuesday you sell a property and you make $50,000, you better get up Wednesday and lace up those shoes the same way you laced them up on Tuesday morning when you got Tuesday afternoon, when you got that $100,000 check or $50,000 check, right? It's freaking hard, man.
Get in there.
But it's easy.
It's hard, but it's easy. I think it's simple, but not easy. A lot of people don't understand the difference. Tell me about your gratitude routine.
Yeah. So, I learned this from Tony, part of it. And I'm telling you, if you listen to me, this will help hopefully improve your life. So every morning I get up, when it's a normal morning, I'm not traveling. When I'm traveling, it's usually more because I have more time in the morning. But it's 5 minutes of when I get up, I start with, gratitude. And it's literally, thank you for letting me be where I live and have this amazing yacht that I live in and live at the Sarasota Yacht Club. Every morning, I'm grateful for the people in my life, the Currys, the Vernias, the Tony Perrys, my Guy Soul Mikes, the Mikes, all these people. And I go through this. I'm just gratitude that I got to wake up and I'm in Sarasota. I'm grateful for, just talk about what you're grateful for, because most of us get stuck on a day-to-day basis of what's wrong in their life, right? And they go, how's this happening to me? And what's this doing to me? But when you pull this gratitude out, I'm grateful for Fuqua and Brian Adams and Chip Lever and Jay Scott and all these people, right? Our friendship. And I do that for 5 minutes every morning. It really gives me this positive energy. But the next 5 minutes is about, this is a little deep. This is deep. So it's about where I want to be in 5 years. What I'm going to be doing 5 years from now. And I'm telling you, I started this 5 years ago. And I think what happens if you think you're on a day-to-day in the month and the year, and I always think out 5 years, and I started doing this. Well, now so it's probably 4 years ago I started doing it. 5 years ago I started doing it. And I'd say 90% of the things that I was thinking of in those mornings, I have today. Now, part of it was taking my friends to an island and renting a yacht and us going out for dinner. I didn't know I was going to end up owning the yacht and taking my friends out to dinner, but that was part of it. And it has to be very specific. And it's literally, I'm going to show you this because it has to be, in the beginning, it was kind of like words. And then in the beginning, it was kind of like pictures of a boat, an island, $100 million apartment building, going to Europe. It was a picture. But then as I did it every morning, I got into like 5, 6, I could see myself getting on the boat, stepping on the islands, my friends going out to dinner. And I just took 25 people, my friends I'm telling you, I just took 25 friends. This is 2 years in a row to the Bahamas on my boats, and they got hotels and we all went out and chased dolphins and had just an amazing time. And, but I believe it gets into your subconscious. And when you do it over a long period of time, you feel like you already have what you want 5 years from now. And look, it can change, but I'm telling you, 100% it works. The gratitude and where you're going to be in 5 years, and then you got to go, when you start thinking about where you want to be, and it starts to go, you start figuring out how you're going to get there. But I'm telling you, I feel like it gets into your subconscious, and it took me probably 9 months to feel like I was already getting closer, and it all kind of it fell into place. So that's my 5 minutes of gratitude. And then 5 minutes of where I'm going to be in 5 years. And, I started with this, I got stuck in Sarasota. It's like, what the hell else could I want in my life? But I'd say about 1.5 years ago to 2 years ago, part of that where I'll be in 5 years was traveling through Europe and going to Rome and Italy and Turkey and going to Greece and going to Cannes and all these, Milan. And I've been thinking about it almost every single morning, prior. Now, guess what? The month of September, right? I'm flying into Milan. We're going to Greece. We're going to Rome. We're going to all these. It's like I'm going to 15 different countries.
Nice.
But it got in my subconscious every morning when I was thinking about it. And I really felt like I was already doing it. So when Tony brought up this trip that he wanted to take me on, and, Tony Perry's paying for most of the trip. So that's kind of a bonus because I took him away to Turks and Caicos years ago. So, when Tony, I'm like, yeah, let's do this. I've been thinking about this for 1.5 years. I want to do it. And we're going to go for the whole month. I'm not telling you what days. Well, I already saw. So just don't come and steal my boat. Okay. But I think it's really important. I think Tony Robbins taught me that. And it's pretty cool. Can I switch topics just for a little bit?
Go for it.
One of the problems that I had and one of the big mistakes I made was holding on to properties and holding on to people too long. That's an employee that wasn't doing the right thing. I can't
properties
find
and people.
Okay. Oh, everything. Yeah. It's everything in life. Don't hold on to anything that you don't think that is going to work out, or if something's burning you up in your life and it's not working out, let it go. I call it the stripper pole. Don't make it like you got butter on your hands and you got this stripper pole, right? I got a stripper pole here. That you just hold on. A bad property. I remember I had like a 16 unit in Philly and it was a shit show, man. It was a mess. It took me 2 years, but my ego got in the way. I can't fail. I'm Steve Lloyd. I got to get this thing up and running. I ended up selling it, losing $200,000. But you know what? Just the stress that I had with this thing, I was able to let go. I'm telling you, I had friends for 20 or 30 years. When I got stuck here, what are you doing? How come you're staying in Siesta Key? I got rid of them. Gone. Don't hold on to things when things aren't working out. It's going to cost you more money if you've got the ego to try to hold on to things. Anything in life. I really don't care what it is. If it's not going well for me, if there's a person, if there's a friend, if there's a piece of real estate, don't hold on to that thing too long. If it's not working, get it out of your life. Put good things in your life. If you're in this game for 20, 30 years, you're going to end up getting properties that just aren't going to work out, and that one cost me a lot of money. That one, I wish, Kerry's going, let this thing go. No, I can make this work. On the 100 different idea that I had that didn't work. And then I finally surrendered and I'm like, oh,
I call that.
I'm a loser.
You were Yosemite Samming. Remember Yosemite Sam?
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to do it and I'm going to do it.
I didn't do it. I caught a bunch of properties. Let them go and move on.
Awesome.
Let them go and move on. There's nothing, Tom, the greatest thing about the United States is this country is made up of entrepreneurs. And there is no easy road to this, but I always leave my post, my best life, our best life. And I put, never, ever give up, ever. I'm still challenging myself. I still want to do charities and improve and create cash flow for charities for people that need. Me and Kerry do a lot of it. We're going to do more this year and keep growing helping these foundations. And just never, ever give up, ever.
Nice. Steve Lloyd, totally awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.